which one it's about. All right, good evening. It's very late over here on the East Coast, so we're gonna keep this short and sweet. We have an amazing guest with us tonight. Thank you all for coming. But I would like for you to meet Adam Verona of Nivole Moscato. I was about to say your title, and then I was trying to say Moscato at the same time. Nivole Moscato. I always say, you know, if you love Moscato, then, you know, this is one of the best ones. I actually used to sell a ton of this at the St. Regis. And once you have a really good Moscato, it's really hard to go back. So we'll have a quick chat. You know, you guys have the wines, you taste through that. It's only one, so it's not like you're going to taste it through a ton of it. But I'm glad to introduce a high quality Moscato. And Adam will go through, you know, talk a little bit about the wine. The family actually has more than one brand. We just have the one Moscato for this tasting, but I'm sure that we'll be introducing you to their other wines as well. It's actually one of my favorite Italian winemaking families. So without further ado, I will let Adam take it over, and, you know, we'll just have like a little conversation. I guess we can kind of start with tell us about you and, you know, what you're doing with the family.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you very much for everybody's attention and taking time out of your night. We have been, so my name is Adam Verona, and I'm the export manager for Michele Chiarlo Winery. And Michele Chiarlo Winery is in northern Italy. Specifically, it's in the Piedmont region, which translates to the foot of the mountains, because the Piedmont is between the Alps and the Mediterranean Sea. And then on the western border of Piedmont is actually France. So we're quite close to you know, mainland Europe, and it's been an important region in the development and the birth of Italy, because there was lots of trade taking place between you know, the southern regions and also the mainland of Europe. So the culture in all the 20 regions of Italy is quite different. I joined the Chiarlo family/team around 6 years ago. And Michele, who's now 87 years old, started the winery back in 1956. And when I say I joined the family, I said that in a sort of metaphorically, but also literally in a way, because it's a family-run operation. Of course, Michele has two sons, Alberto and Stefano. Stefano's in charge of the winemaking. Alberto's in charge of the sales and marketing. And then Michele calls me his ragazzo americano, or his American boy. I'm based in Charleston, and I started out as the brand ambassador for these wines for the Canada and the US, and now I'm doing global exports. So it's a wonderful, wonderful family. The winery, we focus only on local indigenous varietals, and because right where in the heart of where we're located, you know, the emphasis is on tradition. Tradition, and also celebrating the great history of the local varieties. The winery is right between Asti and Alba, but slightly closer to Asti, and we'll be talking a little bit about that and the importance of that later on. So yeah, I was able to join Tahira in Atlanta a couple weeks back at her wonderful event, and also spoke at the SomCon event downtown. So it's really nice to see her again, as you all know. What else? The winery, we produce Moscato, but we produce other varietals as well. For the whites, we make something called Gavi, which is made with a grape called Cortese. It's dry, unlike the Moscato. It's bone dry, almost fermented down to virtually, you know, 1 to 2 grams of sugar per liter. So that's certainly classified more in on the dry side. For reds, we make Barbera and Nebbiolo-based wines. Barbera is a varietal that's nice and juicy and round with like flavors of blackberry and black cherry. Super smooth tannin, so it's super low tannin, so it's drinks super smooth. And then the other red is the Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is the main varietal that you find in these iconic wines called Barolo and Barbaresco. Barolo and Barbaresco have to be 100% Nebbiolo, and Nebbiolo is a really interesting, unique varietal because it sort of looks like Pinot Noir in a sense, because it has a much lighter color, but it has a wonderful presence of tannin, and the tannin is the texture of the red wines. Technically it's a type of astringency that you find that you'll feel inside your mouth. You know, if you drink even a Cabernet Sauvignon, you can taste the tannin, you can feel the tannin kind of coat the inside of your mouth. Well, tannin is a natural preservative, so and which softens over time, and that's why the Barolo and Barbaresco can age for many, many years, in some cases 4 or 5 decades. There's Barolo enthusiasts that are drinking bottles from the 50s and 60s right now and writing reviews. And there's some real, you can really dive deep into Piedmont if you wish to. But tonight the focus is on Moscato, and Moscato is important because of where we're located within Piedmont. Again, closer to Asti. You've probably all heard of Asti, and it's interesting because Asti Spumante is made in our area as well. And Asti Spumante is basically Moscato that is more sparkling, because Spumante means is the general term for sparkling wine in Italy. So you can have Spumante wines from all over, from Sicily, Sardinia, Veneto, Alto Adige, wherever it may be, because spuma means foam and spumante is sparkling. So Asti Spumante and Moscato di Asti are different for technical reasons. Asti Spumante has higher alcohol and more bubbles. Moscato di Asti is lower alcohol, also with less bubble, a more fine bubble. To hear it, I don't know if we want to do the questions. Otherwise, I'm like
yeah, I think, if you guys have questions, and not just about the Moscato, because you have, a pretty good resource here from the region and the family. If you have some questions, you could just jump in and, ask whatever you wanted to know. I think when did you say that they started making wines? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Oh, well, the Chiarlo family, the winery itself started in 1956, but even a couple generations before that, because the family's were farmers. And when Michele started the winery, he was given a vineyard of Moscato and a vineyard of Barbera. And so Barbera and Moscato are really the roots for the Chiarlo winery. And then over the last 60 years, we've grown and become a more fully representative of the Piedmont wines, totally. Like I mentioned, Barolo, Barbaresco, Barbera, and the Gavi as well. So we've been making Moscato since the very, very beginning. And it's interesting to point out the history of Moscato as well, which is, they say the Greeks started growing Moscato back, thousands and thousands of years ago. Well, Moscato has obviously been spread throughout the world. It was brought over to Italy by the Greeks. And obviously now it's grown all over. Like, you'll find California Moscato, Australian, South African. Moscato kind of, it acclimates very well to whichever climate that it's planted in. And it also tends to sort of evolve genetically depending on where it's been growing. The Moscato from northern Italy from Piedmont is a specific variety called Moscato Bianco, white Moscato. Or it's also been called Moscato di Canelli. Canelli is one of the villages it's the most important village in Italy for Moscato. It's considered the capital of Moscato I dare say the world, because we have to consider the fact that the Moscato d'Asti is different from California Moscato, different from Australian Moscato. Without naming brands, a lot of consumers, a lot of general consumers are sort of, their idea of Moscato is based on what you see in the stores. And so a Moscato that you may have from California is perhaps higher in alcohol, no bubbles, generally speaking, while ours is the very traditional low alcohol with the bubbles. Specifically, to get a little technical, Moscato d'Asti can only be between 4.5 and 6% alcohol, and so that's quite low. And the reason that how do you make a wine with such low alcohol? That's done by a short fermentation. Fermentation is only around 6 days total, because, well, first of all, the Moscato is the first grape varietal to be picked throughout the year. It's the first because so often sweet wines will either be a late harvest wine, where they wait till the very, very end for the sugars for it to become so ripe that the sugars are super high. Or on the other hand, sometimes they will, wine producers will use a method called the pasito method. And the pasito method is when they'll actually take the grapes and dry them. And by drying the grapes, they're almost on their way to being raisins. And what that does is the water evaporates out of the juice, out of the grape. The grapes shrink, and therefore the juice concentrates. And so it becomes sweeter. So you have late harvest wines, you have pasito method, but we are neither. We are, again, it's the first varietal to be harvested. And one of the reasons is because number one, when you have a wine that's as sweet as Moscato Nivole, you need acidity. And acidity is something that, only not a lot of consumers talk about. It's not too consumer friendly to talk about the acidity in wines, but for wine professionals, it's essential, and it's absolutely the backbone of wine, and also very much the backbone of these sweet wines. Our Moscato Nivole, depending on the vintage, has between 100 and 120 grams of sugar per liter, and so that's quite on the high end. And historically, it's been a dessert wine, but we're finding that the consumption styles have changed, because in Piedmont, Moscato is always something that you find at the end of dinner, generally speaking, or as an aperitif before dinner, because of the delicate aromatics, and also just that super refreshing qualities of the Nivole wine.
So can we talk about, since we segued into there, can we talk about the wine, like the aromatics, like what, because I always say it has this like creamy cloud, like I say it's a cloud of peaches when I would sell it to people.
Well, that's actually brilliant of you to hear, because Nivole in Piedmont dialect means clouds. So I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's genius of you. Thank you for that. But no, the aromatics of the Moscato is probably what is most remarkable about the wine, because even if you're not, even for those people that don't really care for sweet wines, you can put your nose in this glass and it makes you smile, because the aromatics are astounding. That peaches, the flowers, apricots. Also, there's a certain herbaceous quality, like, sometimes you can smell this sort of fresh sage, but then in the palate, you get all those same flavors, but you get to taste them instead of smell them. At the same time, you have this wonderful sort of creamy sensation. And of course, there's no cream in there at all. And of course, there's no apricots, peaches, or flowers that we put in there. It's all 100% natural. So, but these days, you know, if you're shopping for Moscato, you may come across like a peach Moscato or a watermelon Moscato or something like that. And just know that the Moscato d'Asti that we make has no additional flavoring whatsoever. It's absolutely natural. And the wine, the coolest part of the wine for me is that the wine itself tastes just like the grapes if you were to pick them and eat them off the vine. And, you know, Chardonnay, you don't get that. Cabernet, you don't get that. You know, it's super, super unique. So the aromatics are, you know, probably the key, I would say.
What's the numbers on the exporting, and what country do you export to the most, and what do those numbers look like? Like, do you have segments even within the US of like demographic breakdown of the wine consumption, particularly for like the Nivole?
Nivole. Nivole. Yeah. Nivole. We do. I mean, we've done some surveys before, and to sort of identify who's our crowd, because, you know, to be honest, in the last few years, the sales have doubled in the last 3 years specifically. And the US is the #1 export market in the world by far. But we're in 65 countries total, from Asia to Europe. We're in Africa. All over Asia. It's very, very popular right now, and I think it pairs well with some of their spicy foods as well. But, you know, pairing aside, it's just been kind of this Moscato boom taking place right now. And as for the segments, well, the channels, let's say, in which they could be sold, we have, you know, we look at restaurants versus retail, and it's quite even. It's quite balanced, because Moscato, the Nivole was actually one of the first Moscatos ever to be introduced to the United States. And I say that not because I wasn't working with the family at the time, but it's other wine producers that have told me that Michele Chiarlo introduced Moscato to the United States. And also for them, the United States has become their #1 market. So it tends to, I mean, the Nivole specifically tends to skew a bit more female than male. It generally between ages 25 and 45. And one of the reasons is because Nivole is not the least expensive out there. So, you know, it's more of a premium quality Moscato. And, you know, our retail is right around $20. And so we have to, you know, consider the fact that, you know, it's not the college kids that are going to grab 6 bottles and go into a party, but it's more young professionals that tend to drink this, you know, in bars and nightclubs, at you know, country clubs and so forth. But #1 place for consumption is relaxing at home, we've noticed. So people buy a bottle of Moscato, and it's a Netflix and chill kind of beverage, and we really like that, because since the early 90s, when Nivole was introduced to the US, we first came to the US market with Nivole in half bottles only, and so for around the first 20 years, it was only half bottle. Is that what you had at St. Regis?
Yeah, I remember that, because when I got the case and it was full bottles, I was shocked. I was like, when did they start doing full bottles?
Yeah. Well,
I remember that.
So we started the full bottles in 2014, because that's when we saw that Moscato's being taken a bit more seriously now, and also the occasion when people are drinking it is evolving. So for the first 20 years, we had the half bottle that we marketed towards high-end Italian restaurants, and the half bottle was kind of a perfect amount for a 4-top at the end of dinner with their desserts, and that was sort of the traditional time that you'd have Moscato. Well, now our number one account in the U.S. is in Manhattan, and it's a steakhouse called Mastro's. Mastro's has Moscato d'Asti on the wine list by not on the dessert wine list, but on the regular wine list, and by doing that, they've become our number one client. So what does that say exactly? Because those of us in the wine industry, we always talk a lot about pairings and the appropriate time to have things, but I think that the fact that that people are kind of deciding for themselves, I think that is something that should be celebrated. We are perfectly happy that if you go to Mastro's and order a ribeye steak and you have a glass of Moscato with that, no one is judging you for that. That's perfectly fine if that's what you like to drink. So our campaign is sort of cross. We, of course, represent the tradition, but we also encourage you to drink whatever you like, whenever you like. So I think that's the message that we in the industry have to really promote.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any thoughts on the Moscato? Who's had I guess I'm not going to name drop. Who's had a different California Moscato and versus this one?
No one.
I was hoping to drink it tonight, but I think our shipment got delayed in DC, so we don't have ours yet.
Oh, sorry about that, Will.
Hey, no problem. We'll get it on Friday, and I'll.
Sorry about that, Will.
Hey, no problem.
Anyway, no, it's sorry, I heard somebody.
Oh no, I was gonna say, Will, honestly, it tastes like a peach creamsicle. It's really good.
Awesome. I love that.
I would say, like, compared to some stuff that I have had from California, it like lacks the kind of vibrancy that the acidity gives. So this is just a lot more pleasant. As far as like, it's not like totally annihilating my palate with the sugar. It's very balanced as well, which is great.
The acidity and also the bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
The bubbles sort of just dance in your palate too, and it does something with the aromatics also, and really just kind of makes it come alive in your palate.
Yeah.
Lynn said it tastes amazing. I was able to try it during SomCon ATL, and great masterclass, by the way, Adam.
Wow.
Chris said, I love this Moscato. It's my go-to when I tell people as to how Moscato should taste. Bars. And Steph Waters said, I don't know why y'all not talking. Why am I reading your comments? I also attended SomCon ATL and attended the Moscato masterclass. Very good. All right, Adam. You getting kudos?
Thanks. I'll take all I can get.
I have a question.
Oh, there we go, Swan. You was trying to get off mute for a second.
How many cases of Moscato do you guys produce versus Barbera and Nebbiolo?
Great question. Moscato, we produce around 30,000 cases. And actually it's about equal with the Barbera, around 30,000 cases as well. And then Nebbiolo around 14,000 cases between the Barolo, Barbaresco, and Langhe Nebbiolo. Total as a winery, we produce around 100,000 cases, which is medium. We're not tiny, but we're certainly not huge by any means. Yeah. What before today, what are some of your favorite Moscatos? Like do you have any go-tos that
Cupcake?
Okay, cupcake?
I'm joking.
Oh, no, seriously.
No, that was sarcasm. I'm joking.
But I think they do make a Moscato d'Asti as well, right?
I don't talk about it.
Okay. Well, one thing that's guaranteed with the Michele Chiarlo Nivole Moscato is that that Moscato is not, it's a fun wine to drink, but it's a very difficult wine to make. And it's sometimes you may think, well, it's a sweet wine, it can't be that hard. But in fact, it takes a lot of precision. Knowing exactly when to harvest is key, because traditionally harvest takes place at the very end of August. But now with the climate situation sort of evolving, we have to anticipate the harvest. And this year it started around halfway through August. So the harvest time is creeping a little earlier and earlier. And that's because, again, we're, the winemaking approach is a very minimalist approach to the wine, because again, we're not adding any flavors. We're not adding any chemicals to assist. This is all what nature has given us. Like I mentioned, the wine tastes just like the grapes. I lost track for a second. Oh, sorry. It's how difficult the wine is to make. Something else to mention in the vineyards that you may not find it with other producers is we have of all the acres that we have under vine, we go through and do something called green harvest, which is actually it's a type of cluster thinning. What does that mean exactly? Well, the grapevine produces between 10 and 12 bunches of grapes per vine. And what our guys in the vineyards will do is they'll go through and cut approximately 50%, and they'll leave 5 or 6 bunches per vine. The rest drops to the ground. And the reason for that is because we want the quality. Well, when you reduce the amount of clusters, the energy that the vine produces goes into less fruit and makes higher quality fruit. So yes, we grow less, we harvest less, but the quality is higher, in our opinion. And we hope that translates to what's in your glass as well, and that you'd agree.
I would agree with that. I just wanted to say one thing. This is Lynn. With your Moscato d'Asti, a lot of Moscato d'Astis tend to be on the sweeter level, or people like them on the sweeter level. But I would say with yours, it's very floral, very neutral and distinct, and very pronounced. And like the bubbles, they last. And that's what I like about yours versus back when I first started drinking wine. I guess I really gravitated towards that sweetness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when I tell people I drink Moscato d'Asti, the ones that they will bring you are the sweeter ones where you really can't even smell the floral notes or anything like that, because I mean, it's just really not anything to it. But it's really nice. That's what I like about yours.
Well, thank you very much for that, and it's a wonderful compliment to hear. I have a restaurant background, and of course, with my job, we go from restaurant to restaurant and are speaking with sommeliers and restaurant managers, and I think that we still have, not we, but me. I have a lot of work to do to promote the importance of quality Moscato, because think about sommeliers that are writing a wine list. If they need a new Chardonnay, they may taste through 20 or 30 Chardonnays to find just the right one. But then when it comes to Moscato, oftentimes they'll order the cheapest one that the sales rep has. Send me a case of that tomorrow, and they're not even worried about it. Well, I think Moscato deserves a little bit more attention, to the details, and the fact that the Moscato consumers are just as important as your Cabernet or Chardonnay drinkers as well. So that's what we hope as the Chiarlo family we're able to offer. That is a really high quality Moscato experience, and that's our goal, is to make you happy and smile.
Kevin wants to know, can you expand on your process of anticipating the harvest?
Yes. So first of all, we have to have a very, very close eye on the weather throughout the entire season. We have to analyze also the chemical components of the grapes themselves, analyzing the level of sugars, the levels of sugar versus the level of acidity, and we have to be sure that that ratio is just right, because as the grapes ripen, the sugar level goes up and the acidity level goes down, up and down and up and down. The longer you wait, the further apart those drift. So we want to be sure that the acidity level and the sugar level are in sync with one another, because it's going to show at the final result after fermentation. With the summer times now becoming a bit more, the summer's becoming basically hotter and longer. We have to take that into consideration and sort of evolve with what's happening with the climate. Generally speaking, Piedmont is a very cool growing climate, so a little bit of warmth isn't such a bad thing, but we do have to keep a close eye on the acidity levels and the sugar levels, and then know what the weather has been maybe for the month leading up to harvest, and then right around harvest. If we have any rains coming, we're going to want to pick before the rain, etc. So then, then we take the grapes directly from the vineyards and immediately start the fermentation process. And again, the fermentation process, once the grapes are squeezed, by the way, they go into these large containers, and we have these sort of big cylinder-shaped metal tanks that inside have these bladders, that they're called, and the bladders expand. And these bladders are coating the whole inside of these metal tanks, and they expand very, very slowly. So the grapes that are inside they get squeezed, and they get very, very gently crushed or pressed. And that's the juice that comes out, which is what goes straight to the fermenter. And again, the idea is to retain all of those very, very delicate aromatics. And the earlier you harvest, the more pronounced those aromatics are as well. And so I may have mentioned before, but the fermentation is only 6 days total. And halfway through fermentation, the vats, these large stainless steel vats, are actually sealed. And what's happening during fermentation is what's happening during the fermentation is the sugar eats the yeast. Excuse me, other way around. The yeast eats the sugar, excretes alcohol, and at the same time releases CO2. And so the CO2, the bubbles that you taste in, just like those in Champagne, or in here in Nivole, the bubbles are all natural from the fermentation process. And again, that's because day 3 or 4 in the vats are sealed. So while fermentation is still taking place and the CO2 is being released, it's staying inside the vat and therefore staying inside the wine. And so the CO2, its first home is inside the wine.
That's really cool. Let me see. Have you seen a large shift in harvesting with climate change?
I think he answered it as I was typing it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
To go to your previous question about types of Moscato, seems like it was the same one. Bartonura. Is that how you say that?
Yeah. Bartonura.
That was Drake's Moscato. You know why we're here. Y'all know why we're here. Come on.
Yeah, Bartonura. In the blue bottle.
Yeah, exactly. You know why we're here. Come on.
Yeah.
Let me see. Does anybody else have any questions? You can certainly just.
I have one more question. Well, probably 2, but can you talk a little bit more about the genetic differences or the ways that Moscato changes genetically depending on where it's grown?
Good question, and a deep question also. The genetics of Moscato, well,
like a overview.
I think I would kind of, my generic answer for that, only because I'm not an enologist, is that wherever over the thousands of years that we've had, that humans have been growing Moscato, it has to acclimate to its new climate. So, maybe in a warmer growing climate, it may have different characteristics than us in Piedmont. Of course, the soils that we have in Piedmont are very unique. They're very chalky, calcium-rich soils. And so if it's planted elsewhere where maybe there's more sort of organic compost and different micronutrients within the soil, I think that the vines would have to adapt to that as well. And I would say, and forgive me for this, but I would say that my generic answers could probably be applied to many different types of varietals as opposed to just Moscato. But that was a good question, a deep dive question that I don't have a great answer for, except for knowing that it does have to adjust to the climate.
Okay, one question that I know for sure you have the answer to. Can you talk a little bit about your path to becoming a brand ambassador for an Italian wine company?
Absolutely. So I started out in the hospitality industry, starting out as a busboy when I was 15 years old, to managing restaurants, and ultimately I was always trying to work in nicer and nicer places. So from 4-star restaurant to a 5-star hotel. I worked in Kiowa Island, which is right here near Charleston, where I live. And then when my first son was born 11 years ago, I wanted something with a little more humane work hours. So I became a wine sales rep for Republic National Distributing Company. And I was a sales rep for around 6 years, and around year 7, I became the Italian specialist for the whole portfolio. And whenever you work for the distributor, oftentimes you have suppliers that are coming into town and want to be shown around to the best restaurants, the best accounts, the best clients, to shake hands, kiss babies, but also develop new business as well. And I was basically at that time really, really impressed by the job that these guys did. And I wanted very, very badly to represent one single winery, because working for this distributor, you represent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brands, and it can be a little overwhelming. You'll read some tech notes on a Cabernet, and then you'll run into the restaurant and then do your presentation and then run back out and do the next one. So I wanted to become an expert for one particular winery. And then eventually I was recruited by a headhunter, I guess you could call it. But I think the interaction that I had with, going from the restaurants to the distribution side gave me enough experience to sort of see, where this wine comes from. Our beloved 3-tier system here in the U.S., which we have to, follow the rules and learn to work with. But overall, the short answer is it started out with just passion for the wine, and get to taste as much wine as I possibly could, to go to as many events. And also, if you're in the restaurant business, to see your sales reps and make yourself available to tasting as much as possible and learning as much as possible. I'm 44 years old now, but I took the intro SOM test for the Court of Master Sommeliers back when I was 20, when I just turned 21 years old. And so the passion kind of lives on today. Now I've got a family to support, and I'm able to do what I love, which is talk to people about wine. So I feel really, really blessed in that regard. I will tell you real quick, in 2002, I went to do harvest in Tuscany, and I worked at a winery there because I thought I wanted to be a winemaker at that time. And I learned real fast after about 1 hour of doing harvest that this was really, really, really physically demanding work. And I thought, wow, what have I gotten myself into? I stayed in Italy for another 9 or 10 months, working in the cellars and working in the fields and doing all that. And I realized, wow, it's a cool story to tell 20 years later. But what I learned is that I need you all. I need to see your faces. And I love talking about wine, and what motivates me, what drives me is the smiles and the grins that you all have right now. And, so that's the answer in a nutshell.
Thank you. Also, I'm doing harvest right now, so completely understand that.
Where are you?
In Napa. I'm working at a custom crush. So there's a cab house that also owns a custom crush. So I'm literally making everything from like really weird, natty, orange stuff to like very traditional, big, bold cab. And it's crazy. So
That's awesome. Well, if you'd like to hook up or chat after this at any point, and if I can introduce you to the right people or help you along your way, but it sounds like you're on the right path.
Love that. Thank you, for sure.
Of course. So,
okay. Anything else before we wrap up?
Did I leave anything out?
Doesn't seem like it. No one seems to have any preguntas.
Yeah, well, thank you all. Thank you all so much. It's something else.
Barolo next session. Yes, the last question is: you coming back with some other wines?
I can.
You bringing the rest of the family back? That's the question.
We can do Barolo next. I would love to.
All right. Well, we're going to do reds next.
Yeah, well, let's do reds next. We can do Barbera and Barolo.
Mm-hmm.
So we can taste them side by side, compare them, so that whenever you guys come to Piedmont, then you have a really good idea. The people in Piedmont, they say, because we're becoming more and more of a tourist destination. Like Tuscany is hustling and bustling with wine tourism, but in Piedmont they say, we have fewer tourists but higher quality tourists. Mm-hmm. So it's a joke, but you all are certainly welcome at the winery anytime. And if you're ever in the area and would like to come, I'd be glad to set you up with a tasting. And of course, we would let them know that we all met this evening. And I think Tahira could help link us up if you all had any trips coming up.
We need to make a trip.
Last thing I want to say is we have a new Moscato coming out this year, and it's going to be Nivole as well, but instead it will be called P Nivole, and P stands for premium. Premium Moscato, because it's going to be the first grapes of the year to be harvested, and it will come from our very best vineyards in the Canelli area, in the historic vineyard, which is around the Torre di Contini. It will be probably we hope to be one of the best Moscatos ever that will be imported to the United States. It will be in a white bottle. It'll have the same Nivole image on the bottle, but it's going to be the freshest, the most aromatic, and the most exciting Moscato that we hope that the U.S. has ever seen. So we say that in a very humble but optimistic way.
That's awesome. I can't wait to try it. You're going to send me a bottle, right?
You bet, Tahira. I'll send you.
I got you on camera. You know this is being recorded. So I just waited for you to say yes. Gotta hold you to that now. But no, thank you, Adam. This was wonderful. And it was so enlightening in a lot of ways. So we really appreciate your time. And you can take the kids off of mute now.
No, they're okay.
My daughter's probably a prune upstairs in the tub herself. But yes, thanks everybody for showing up as always and for your questions. We hope that this was valuable for you and you learned something, and you have a new favorite Moscato.
Thank you. No, thank you all very much. Because I'm finally learning to say this, but please follow us on Instagram at Michele Chiarlo, at Michele Chiarlo, I guess. And on Facebook as well. So, and actually Moscato Nivole has its own website now too. So we're trying to get the word out there. So thank you all for your attention, and look forward to doing it again with the reds next time, Tahira.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if